Out with the old and in with the new. Happy, completely arbitrary new year, everyone! I hope your 2025 has got off to an excellent, or at the very least acceptable start, and that you partied the exact amount you wanted to over the holidays. As per usual, I spent our winter holidays making elaborate craft plans for the coming year, and as per usual, I'm gonna kick off the year's videos by telling you all about it. I know, right? Thrilling stuff. If you're new here, hello! My name is Michelle and I love to do all of the crafts, but especially the stitchy ones. I mostly exist to enable, so if you enjoy that kind of thing, you've come to the right place. Alright, on with the craft goals. So I've been doing these videos for a few years now, and normally how it works is I'll spend the first half of the video going over last year's craft goals, what did and didn't work out, and then the second half adding to that list and going over the new improved list. But things are a little bit different this year. See, here is the list of goals I set for myself in 2024. 10 goals in total, and I will just tell you straight up right now, I managed 4 of these. 5, maybe, if we're being really generous. If you've been watching for a while, you'll know that I caught COVID at the end of 2023, and I spent that December really ill. By the time my goals video rolled around, I'd sort of got better. I wasn't coughing very much anymore, and I could breathe normally for the first half of each day, which was pretty good. I just assumed that the remaining bits and pieces would sort themselves out over the coming weeks, and then it would be back to normal. So that's what I planned for, a relatively normal year. It did not work out that way. It was almost the end of March before I woke up one day and found that suddenly my brain was working again. It was maybe late April, early May when finally our slow daily walk around the block stopped having me absolutely gasping for breath. And I don't even know how long it took for the constant heart pain to go away, but it was a long time. Even now, I get the occasional day where my breathing just won't work right and everything is a struggle. Thankfully, they are a lot less often than they used to be, but they do still happen and it's been over a year. So yeah, I planned for a normal year and what I got was very much not that at all. But I'm very lucky to have almost completely recovered, and frankly, I'm just glad to have made it to 2025 at all. Why am I telling you all of this? Is it just to have a whinge? No. As much fun as it would be to sit here and tick off almost all of last year's goals and congratulate myself on what a great crafter I am, it's also important to acknowledge that these lists are just a guideline. If things change, things change. So I did what I could, I set aside everything I didn't have the energy for. That's that. Onwards and upwards. There were, of course, some successes. My cruising shawl turned out great, and it's admittedly reawoken my love of shawl knitting. This is raising philosophical questions about the whole I enjoy making practical things lesson that I learned at the end of last year. Be right back changing my entire lifestyle, I guess, so that I can actually wear these things. I did also learn a fair bit about basic adjustments to sewing patterns, including important lessons learned from my first and completely failed full bust adjustment. I did capture some footage of that process, but completely failed to turn it into a video, so I'm really sorry to whoever it was last year who was excited for me to tackle this subject. It's on my videos list for this year, I promise. Similarly, I did dig into the topic of parking in cross-stitch, and I learned a lot about different approaches to this. This was one that I wanted to learn about specifically so I could make a video about it, and I'm sorry to say that didn't happen last year as planned, but it is all outlined and ready to record, so watch out for that one soon. As for my own approach to parking, well, it's kind of as haphazard as ever. But it's a more educated kind of haphazard, and I think that counts for a lot. Joining in with more events. Now, I nailed this one. I admit the amount of things joined in with was still quite tiny, but it was more than my usual, and that means it was a success. Not only did I do every 24 hours of cross-stitch weekend that I wasn't on holiday for, but the one in April even involved video calls and general socialisation with humans. Hopefully, if we have time, we will be arranging some similar stuff for the next one, which I think is the 17th to the 19th of January. So if you're a sociable type and that kind of thing sounds fun, the link to our Discord server will be down in the description. In fact, inspired by 24 hours of cross-stitch, some of the regular Discord members now set up their own, usually unplanned and very last minute, 24-hour crafting marathon weekends. I can't do every single one of those because, you know, I do sometimes go outside, but I've completed a couple of them and they've been good fun. On top of online events, for my birthday week back in May, I had Dave take me on a road trip and we took part in the Great British Yarn Crawl. We hit up, I think it was 5 different yarn shops across Yorkshire on a very rainy day, and you can see everywhere we visited and what we got up to in a dedicated video on that. And then I also went to my first ever yarn show, which was the Northeast Wool Show up in Newcastle. It's weird because Saffron, who went with me, is my one local crafting friend. We met on Ravelry all the way back in 2013. But in all of this time, we've never gone to a show because they're always so expensive and hard to get to. Trust Newcastle though to put on an easy cheap thing, and we had a great time. Yes, there is also a video on that one too if yarn porn is your thing. Sadly, I don't think I'm going to be able to go to this one in 2025, which is a real shame because I was hoping to turn it into like a very small community meetup thing. As it is, my calendar is already packing out and it's looking like a very busy summer. I'm not sure, I'll just have to kind of see what I can wrangle. I never did get to go to the cross-stitch group that I remember talking about wanting to go to, but I think that's understandable because it's 3 hours each way by public transport. And of course, I have kept an eye out for one that's more get-toable, but without any luck so far. One day I will just take the plunge and try and organise something myself, but right now that is a pipe dream at best. Still, overall, big success on joining in with events. And lastly, I also did a lot more jigsaws, which we'd previously discussed and decided is an honorary craft. I'll need to be doing a lot more jigsaws over the next couple of months though, and more about that when we get into the new goals section. Everything else on this list basically got pushed aside, and it is what it is. Some of them are kind of long-term things anyway that will be in progress for a while. I talked at length about my capsule wardrobe plans in the winter plans video a couple of weeks back, and the other things on the list are still things that I want to do. So we're starting off the 2025 list with a good few things already filled in. But on top of this, I now add try paper quilling. This was the traditional yearly new craft kit that Dave got me for Christmas this year. I actually remember giving this a bit of a go as a kid, but mostly I think I just got really sticky with PVA glue, so we'll see how that goes. Of course, the bobbin lace kit that he got me last year is still outstanding on this list as well, so I need to get a move on or I'm going to look like the most ungrateful gift receiver in the world. Cross-stitch a city for my grandma. Now, I don't normally put specific projects on these lists, but this year is kind of a bit special. Hopefully, fingers crossed it all works out, I will be going away for a fortnight's holiday with my grandma later in the year, and I'm really excited. I think last time we would have been away somewhere together, I was probably about 10. She'll be 87 when we go, and the idea is just to see some places that she never has. So I'm thinking I'll maybe wait and see where we enjoyed the most, or if I decide I need to start stitching pre-trip, which place she's most excited to see, and then I'll buy one of those city-themed cross-stitch patterns. Also on cross-stitch, I want to start more full coverage patterns. And look, aiming for more whips might be a little bit controversial, but it turns out despite being really slow at them, and despite it making for the most boring crafter's log updates in the world, I just really enjoy stitching on them, and enjoyment is supposed to be the whole point. So why not have a couple more on the go? Complete my first Tunisian crochet project. Okay, so I mentioned in the last video that I've recently picked up this pattern, the Farmer's Market top, as part of the Fasten Off Yarn Along event. I already started it. In fact, I worked on it during a Lord of the Rings marathon back in December, so it's actually had quite a lot of hours put in on it. Unfortunately, being a complete noob at Tunisian crochet, there are quite a lot of mistakes in here, and I don't know enough about the craft yet to know if they can be fixed from this point, or if I'm going to need to frog the entire thing out, lose all of those hours and start again. Knowing me, if that does happen, I'll want to put it down and not start it again. So it's getting added to this list as a little bit of external motivation. A reminder to myself that it's no good expecting to be talented at crafts and get them right first time. It's all about persistence and keeping the faith. I can do this. And now for another maybe controversial goal. This year I would kind of like to spend more money on crafts. Now hear me out, because if you're a regular here you know that I basically have absolutely no money, so where is this going to come from? Basically, before last year I got to the point where I'd burned through most of my savings and was starting to get slightly concerned. During last year I managed to get my income from various pursuits, including this channel, so thank you to everyone who watches this channel, up to the point where I could stay afloat. And not only could I stay afloat, but I could start to shovel just the tiniest little amounts into some emergency savings pots. Dentist trips and new glasses and the kind of things that normal humans need all of the time. So my point is, now that that's a little bit more stable, I can maybe start to think about spending small but significant to me amounts on the things that actually bring me joy instead of the essentials of survival. Which will be nice. It'll also be good for the channel because I will be able to do more interesting projects, but mostly, I'll be honest, this is for me. It'll be amazing to be able to indulge my hobby a bit more without feeling guilty about every single penny I spend. See above about starting more full coverage projects. And finally, Yep. I have entered into the UK's first ever official Jigsaw Puzzle National Championship. You heard me. See, there's a certain subset of the Discord gang that are really into their jigsaw puzzles, and I'm very impressionable. So these last 2 years I've found myself watching and transfixed by the World Jigsaw Puzzle Championship. When they announced we were going to have an official UK one, I was still hyped up from the last Worlds, so I immediately started asking around all of my friends, begging someone to enter with me in the pairs format so that I wouldn't have to go and make a complete fool of myself all on my own. No friends were up for it. Dave was a very hard no. But in a slightly shocking turn of events, my mother decided that this is the year she's going to step out of her comfort zone and she would enter it with me. Now, we are not close. Liking jigsaws is one of very few things we have in common, but I'm quite proud of her for joining, even though she's clearly terrified we're not going to finish on time. And you know what? We might not finish on time. We're not professionals by any means. Our individual speeds are terrible, so we might end up being the last pair to not finish as the timer runs out. But if so, then so. I bought us matching sparkly jigsaw earrings for luck, and I intend to have a good time whatever happens. The competition is at the start of April, so it's not a huge amount of time to practice, and we better both get on. If anybody else out there happens to be going to this, please do let me know in the comments, because I feel like coming over and saying hello in person will be a really good distraction from the nerves on the day. I honestly do not know what we were thinking. Wish us luck. So, by my calculations, that brings us up to 11 goals for the year. Which seems reasonable to me right now, even though it's more than twice what I managed all of last year, just because I'm currently still full of New Year energy. We'll see how far it carries me. Obviously, I have tons of other goals for this year as well. Personal goals, relationship goals, channel goals, game dev goals. Have I mentioned I love setting goals? But the trick is to actually plan them out, to know how you're going to get from A to B, which is why there is a gloriously complicated Notion setup, a foolproof task management system, and of course, a number of spreadsheets backing all of this up. Because of course there is. I've been pleased to see more people picking up on the word or phrase of the year thing as well. I've been doing this for a good few years now, and it just helps me focus on improving one area of my life each year, instead of making a load of negative sounding resolutions. For this year, my phrase is going to be, let it go. And before anyone asks, I've never even seen Frozen, it's just a coincidence. So yeah, you can probably tell I am feeling motivated as anything. Last year ended in a sputtering mess. I was absolutely running on fumes for most of the year, to be honest. So everything's kind of still a mess, I'm very much behind on some things. Please bear with me while I catch up, because this break over the holidays was so needed and it has done wonders. 2025 is so my year, and I am going to work really hard to make following me on the internet a worthwhile thing to do. Better get cracking on some of these goals. Massive thanks, as always, to everyone who supports me over on Ko-fi with a small monthly donation. And especially to the Stitch Squad, who will shortly be doing our first of hopefully many VIP video hangouts. Social awkwardness. It's gonna be fine. They are Marianne Johnson, Sunny, Candy Riley Pettinger, Laura Salats, Enlightened Flamingo, Cross Stitch the Globe, I'd Rather Be Stitching, Angela Sue Harrison, Emily Hobbs, Lee the Cozy Crafter, Sarah, Angela Wells, Enraged Flamingo, and Alicia. I'll be back soon with some more crafty nonsense, so in the meantime, have a brilliant rest of your day and keep making cool stuff. Bye!